WI, because obviously we're in Warwickshire, belonged to the Warwickshire County, and they had a competition for a diary for a year. So as you can see on the spine, it was April 87 till March 88. So we were Leamington Hastings and Birdingbury were WI. So I painted, underneath it's really a photograph album, but my husband padded it with linen. So I painted All Saints from Leamington Hastings on the front. And when you're ready to turn it over, the Birdingbury Church is on the back. I painted the back. The requisite of the competition was that every month you'd got to do a poem, painting, a diary of what was happening of interest in the parishes on each month. So that's when Coventry won the cup. So the girl who did that poem, the lady, she was a Coventry kid. And we had to press flowers as well. Over the years, I'm afraid they've faded a bit, but at the very back there's a list of who did what. There was about 3 ladies did the poems, which, reading them this morning, they're absolutely super. It's such a shame they just shut away. And we the ones who we were painters, we just painted some of the surround, obviously. And we decided to dedicate the diary to Ivy Stretton, who during this time died, and she was a real stalwart of the village. The men of the village decided they wanted a bowling green, and I took these pictures. It was snowing, started to snow, and I took them all hot cross buns.
My name's Pat Toole. I've been chairman of the parish hall, over 30 years, I suppose. Yeah, been a pleasure. Yes, it started 5 years ago. Farming people mainly. There was a spare piece of ground on the other side of the tennis court, and we all got together, 14 or 15 of us, and we, I pulled the corners in with a big machine. Well, it would have been a big machine in those days because it was more of old allotment patch and levelled it down a bit. Well, interest went that year. The following year it stood about a yard high with weeds. So we stood side by side and pulled all the weeds out, and then it went on. Fortunately, we got a wonderful man called Fred Cox, who lived in the almshouses. It was his business when he was in full employment to help people with bowls clubs, tennis courts, golf courses and things like that. So we were very fortunate having someone who was top-notch in the job. And so we went on from there, and Leonard Elwood was the treasurer at the time. He applied for grants from rugby in different places, which we got quite a lot of money because we had to turf the whole green. So we, under Fred's watchful eye, we had several loads of sand, and we had to lay the turf down on the sand and look after it from then. And it took several years for the turf to take down through the sand, but it did in the end. Keeping it moist was the biggest problem. It took a long time to. We got I can't just think just the date we started, but we got to have it finished by the end of March because of these grants from Rugby Council. And I remember 2 days before we'd finished, we had a tremendous hailstorm, and it went from green and brown to white all over. And all the hall, all the spoutings that came down, and we had to wait then for half a day for all that to thaw out and go. And then we managed the next day to finish laying the turf, and it sort of got on from there.
What happened?
Well, I don't know how they got out of the field, but there's a little gate in the corner, and these 7 beasts came strolling up through this gate, straight across the green, leaving all the footmarks. And the biggest problem with it was we couldn't pick them up and carry them out. They had to turn around and go out again. So they made twice as many footmarks as they should have done, really. But, oh dear, my face was red. They were mine. Fortunately, I was insured, so all the repair work was done through insurance, but we could have done well without that. My face was red for a long while. Yeah.
Right, my name is Thelma G, and I live at Broadwell, and I'm the present chairman of the Over 60s Club.
From the club.
I have a logbook here, but I don't think it starts at the beginning, because when this is started, they already have a chairman and a treasurer and a committee, and this was in February 1988. As far as we know, the Over 60s Club started about 1960, and at that stage it was called the Widows and Over 60s Club. We don't know how many members there were then. The minute book that I have starts in 1988, when Grace McFarlane was the chairman, but she left the village of Hill in 1990, and Maurice Greenaway became the chairman until 1994, and then Gladys Collett David and I joined when Gladys Collett was the chairman. But unfortunately, she had a stroke and Morris became the chairman again. But unfortunately, he kept no minutes. It is interesting when you look at it. It gives you the members, people that I never knew, Mrs. Biddle and Mrs. Harris, and then it goes on to the committee meeting in 1903-88. And then, of course, it goes up to the present day. But we do meet regularly the last Wednesday of the month, usually in the little room there. But we're all elderly. Talk about over 60s. I think we're more over 80s. I became chairman in 2009. And since then, many changes have been made. We no longer just have tea and chat. We have speakers on various topics, and we have entertainers. Chief amongst these, I think, at one time was Brian Garrard from Rugby, who played records that we could sing to and sometimes dance to. But we had to have those meetings at Broadwell because we couldn't fit up the electric apparatus in the little room here. I suppose our chief entertainment today are the Claremont Singers. They're always very popular, and that meeting is open to the public, anybody else who would like to come and hear them. And we make a special effort with the refreshments, with sandwiches and homemade cakes. In May, we always have tea out somewhere, not too far because we go in our cars. In July, the over 60s come to my garden, and I started that because Gladys Collett would have us at her house. Again, lovely homemade food. At Christmas, we always have a lunch out. Again, not too far away. We have a raffle at every meeting, which helps to pay for our outings. We used to make or wrap small Christmas presents which hadn't cost more than £2, and we put them in a basket or a box and drew them out in turn. But we stopped that when you could no longer get anything worth buying for £2. The Badminton Club was run by Mr. Harold Robin and his wife for many years, I think, as part of the Games Club. But I only ever came to the badminton, and occasionally to the tennis later. Mrs. Robin used to come and watch, and she made absolutely superb and delicious cakes, which everybody still remembers today. Harold was an authoritarian. I remember that once a younger member went out to speak to her boyfriend at the door, and he banned her for 6 weeks. Harold was a winner. He had to win. And I remember when I played with him, and I was at the net, and if I missed too many, I was sent to the back, and Harold stood at the front. Enormous reach and still very nimble on his feet. But I rarely saw the shuttlecock for the rest of the game. After Harold's resignation, things changed again. We had members from Napton, Southam, Birdingbury, Frankton, Dunchurch and Broadwell. And we shared or took in turns to bring the refreshments. And during the half-time break, Alec from Southam would play the piano, and Lance from Birdingbury would play his guitar. We've played other clubs, and our best member was Roy Hopkins, who was also a county player, which of course helped us a lot. We had to close, very sadly, when the ceiling in the hall was lowered to help preserve the heat. Yes. David and I did come, they were running some dancing, ballroom dancing, and David didn't really want to come, but I love dancing, and could I get him to do it? I only had three left feet, and he wasn't a bit interested, and I was so sorry, because I just love dancing.
My name is Margaret Webster. I was born Margaret Collett and brought up in the village of Broadwell. I lived in the parish for quite a few years and attended this hall and used it for many years as well. My grandfather, Richard Good, was one of the founder members of starting the hall and getting the hall built. He did a lot for the parish as well. I knew some of the others. I knew the Sitwells, I knew General Mott, and quite a few of the others. I belonged to the Games Club, run by Mr. and Mrs. Rawbone. They were excellent hosts, and they did such a lot for the Games Club and for us youngsters, well, old people as well. We had old-time dancing, which we were taught by Mr. and Mrs. Batchelor from Dunchurch, and then another couple came later on when they were unable to. We used to play games, badminton, table tennis, billiards, anything that was around we played. We used to walk up from Broadwell. A gang of us used to walk up. Mrs. Brooker used to be the person to bring us up with, along with the other youngsters. Then if they were stopping on later, we would go, my dad would come up and fetch me, and we'd have to go back home. That's if my mum and dad didn't come up to the Games Club, the games evening. It was games one Saturday, dancing the other. Yeah, there was a lot of parties. Mr. and Mrs. Rawbone excelled themselves with parties and dances. We used to have a big Halloween party, and he'd decorate the hall absolutely beautiful. He must have put in hours of work. And Mrs. Rawbone did all the catering, and she used to make such beautiful cakes. They were out of this heaven, really. They really were. They both worked so hard. And we used to have a Halloween party, we used to have a Christmas party, and we used to have one in the spring, but I can't remember what it was called. This was followed by dancing, and we all had a marvellous time. Of course, there was no alcohol. Yes, my brother's 21st was held here. My first marriage was held here, reception was held here. My mother's 80th birthday, my sister's wedding was held here, and most of my relations who lived in this area, we all came to the hall. It was one of the mainstays of the parish, which I'm very grateful to have grown up with.
Gerald Anthony Wood. I was born in Leamington Hastings in a little cottage. As you go round the corner by Bob Cockrell's, there's a little cottage stand there. It was General Mott that paid for it to be built. He lived in the manor, he owned the manor at the time, and he owned all the farmland, he owned it all, and then he sold out to a Major Anston, and he had a house built halfway between Leamington Hastings and Burdenbury, and that house has been remodified now. The guy that lives there now used to own a nightclub from up at Stretton, Crazy Daisies it was called. At Christmas time, Harold Rawbone used to put a party on New Year's Eve, and his wife, I think, made some of the nicest cakes you'd ever eaten. She was a wonderful cook. during the war, the hall was taken over by the MOD, Ministry of Defence, and that little room there was used as a schoolroom because there was evacuation from Coventry and there was too many in the school, so they sent all the big lads, which included me, to go to the classroom in there. And John Sensical just lived at Broadwell. He was the teacher, and so I used to have lessons there, and in here it was full of ammunition. We didn't know. And now I used to come for lessons there.
I'm Doreen. My father was Harold Rawbone, and as long as I can remember, he was involved with the parish hall. We actually lived just across the road, and when my grandfather died, we moved to Leamington Hastings, and I can remember having to come up to the hall. This must have been during the war years. We came on our bikes, and not sure what we did, but it was to get ready for Games Club. So I was never allowed to come to Games Club until I was a teenager, and by then the war was over and the hall was back in use. My mother and I spent an awful lot of time making decorations. You'll have seen the photographs. And my father really missed his vacation. He should have gone into the theatre. He was very artistic and loved nothing better than decorating the hall. Much better than farming. Strongest memories are playing badminton. We had badminton in the main hall, table tennis on the stage. There was a billiard table in the gents' cloakroom, and the ladies' cloakroom was a television. The television, as far as I remember, was put in the 50s when it was a new creation, and people they would come just to watch telly, and they would spend all evening watching telly. I preferred badminton. We played against various clubs in the rugby league, so that made it more interesting.
I am Thelma Kimberley. Was known as Salma Green then, before, yeah. Whole of my life, all but 18 months. They used to have them every week, every Saturday, all the old time dances. They used to come from Rugby and all around. Yeah, the Germans were there first, and then after they went home, they used to go round in the farms working. And then when they went home, they had the Italians. They used to go round to different village dances, but they probably came to perhaps once, you know, now and again. I think badminton was my, you know, the games club, because I met my husband here. He came from Frankton. And yeah, we used to play and used to go and play in the league in rugby. Well, they had a concert from different ones from the games club, yeah. I sang. He was a clown. Various things. I used to come and help Mr. and Mrs. Rawbone with they used to do the refreshments, and then we used to help, come to the dancing and used to help clear up and so forth. I couldn't tell you what year it was born. It must have been after in the 60s or early 70s. Yeah, early 70s. Used to come on a Saturday afternoon. Used to have a Saturday afternoons. Yeah, for just a little while. Yeah. I think that was before my time. They used to do all sorts of things, and they used to have every year against another WI, you know, competitions and things. Yeah, it was. I think it was the first one as Mr. and Mrs. Rawbone had catered for, and then afterwards different ones. You know, they sort of, different ones that got married, they'd do the reception for those, yeah. My sister got married afterwards, and of course the relatives that lived away didn't come, but they'd heard it was such a good time at my reception that she gained from